The glass doors of Coulter Luxury Motors slid open with a hushed whoosh, releasing a blast of chilled air that smelled of leather polish and ambition. Ms. May Wilkins adjusted her sunflower print dress, smoothed a hand over her silver braids, and stepped inside. Rows of sleek vehicles glinted under recessed lighting, their price tags discreetly absent. At 72, she'd never bought a car for herself. Her late husband, Elijah, had always handled that, but today was different. Her grandson, Terrell, was graduating summa cum laude, and she intended to gift him something worthy of his hustle. "Excuse me," she called to a cluster of salespeople laughing by a cobalt blue convertible. Their ties were sharp, their smiles sharper. One glanced at her thrift store handbag and turned back to his phone. "Ma'am, can I help you?" A voice dripped with mock courtesy. Brad Coulter, the dealership manager, loomed beside her, his tailored suit straining over linebacker shoulders. His gaze flicked to her scuffed loafers. "I'd like to test drive the electric sedan," Ms. May said, nodding toward a silver model. "For my grandson." Brad's laugh was a dry bark. "That's a premium vehicle. Maybe start with something practical." He gestured dismissively toward a row of used compacts. Ms. May's spine straightened. 30 years teaching high school algebra had taught her to spot a flawed equation. "Young man, I've balanced budgets you couldn't fathom. Show me the sedan." Brad's smirk hardened. "Listen, we cater to serious buyers. You're wasting my staff's time." He snapped his fingers at a security guard. Heat rose in Ms. May's cheeks as the guard approached, but her voice stayed steady. "I'm a customer. You have no right." "You're a distraction," Brad interrupted, stepping closer. A teenage couple filming TikTok nearby lowered their phone, eyes wide. "Leave before we make it ugly." The guard gripped her elbow, steering her toward the exit. Ms. May's hand flew to her purse, fingers brushing the chipped keychain inside, a relic from Elijah, engraved with a faded EW. She'd carried it since his funeral, a tangible whisper of the man who'd built engines and empires before racism ground his dreams to dust. Outside, the Georgia sun blazed as Brad tossed her a patronizing wave. "Try the bus station, Grandma. Better odds." Ms. May stood rooted to the asphalt, her heart a drumline of fury. Behind her, the teenage girl muttered, "Did that just go viral?" The scent of aged paper and motor oil clung to Elijah's study, a time capsule untouched since his death a decade prior. Ms. May traced a finger along the dusty spine of his engineering journals, her breath catching at a faded photo tucked between pages. Elijah, lean and grinning in coveralls, standing beside a prototype engine that never saw production. "They'll call it a failure," he'd told her, "but it's just ahead of its time." Beneath the photo lay a manila envelope, its contents crisper than memory. Corporate seals glared up at her. Coulter Motors letterhead, stock certificates stamped 1985, and a handwritten note in Elijah's looping script, "For Martha, when the road gets rough." Her hands trembled. Elijah had rarely spoken of Coulter Motors after investors ousted him, dismissing his electric engine as a black man's fantasy. But here, in cold legalese, was proof. 51% ownership buried under decades of corporate loopholes. "Ma'am, this is unprecedented." Attorney Lila Chen's glasses slipped down her nose as she scanned the documents in her high-rise office. Coulter Motors diluted shares for years, but these originals predate their restructuring. They're binding. Ms. May stared at the Atlanta skyline, Elijah's keychain warm in her palm. "So the dealership that threw me out is a subsidiary," Lila confirmed. "You own the parent company. Control it." A laugh bubbled up, sharp and disbelieving. Elijah had quietly weaponized his grief, ensuring she'd inherit not just memories but power. Flashback 1987. Elijah slammed the door, his shoulders shaking. They said the engine's too radical. He spat the word like poison. Ms. May pressed a hand to his stubbled cheek. Radical's just another word for right, she murmured. He kissed her palm, eyes wet. Someday, Martha. Someday they'll see. Back in the present, Ms. May's reflection wavered in Lila's polished table. What do I do? Lila leaned forward. You could dissolve Coulter, sue for damages, or, she paused, reshape it. Ms. May stood, her shadow stretching across the skyline. Schedule a board meeting. Tomorrow. As Lila dialed Coulter's CEO, Ms. May whispered to the keychain, "Someday's here. Elijah." The Coulter Motors tower pierced the Atlanta skyline, its glass facade glinting like a blade. Martha, Ms. May Wilkins stepped out of a modest sedan, her sunflower print dress a burst of color against the corporate grayscale. Attorney Lila, chin marched beside her, heels sharp as her gaze. The lobby's marble floors echoed with their footsteps, drawing stares from suits who mistook Ms. May for a lost tourist, until she strode into the elevator and pressed the button for the 30th floor. The boardroom froze as the doors opened. Charles Coulter, 82 and brittle as old chrome, sat at the head of the table, flanked by men whose faces mirrored his disdain. His grandson Brad lurked near the window, pallid under his tan. Martha Wilkins, Charles drawled, not rising. Didn't peg you for a trespasser. Ms. May set Elijah's keychain on the table. I'm here to discuss ownership. Lila slid the stock certificates across the mahogany. Ms. Wilkins holds 51% of Coulter Motors. Effective immediately. Chuckles rippled until Charles squinted at the documents. His smirk died. These are forgeries. Elijah Wilkins' shares were voided. By you. Ms. May cut in. After you forced him out for being too radical. Flashback 1986. Elijah stood in this very room, sweat staining his collar as Charles tossed his electric engine blueprints into the trash. Cars aren't for saving the planet, Charles sneered. They're for profit. Back in the present, Brad stepped forward, desperation staining his voice. This is a misunderstanding. We'll comp your grandson's car. You don't get to offer me scraps, Ms. May said, soft as a judge's gavel. She turned to Charles. Fire Brad. Apologize publicly. Or I dissolve this company. The room erupted. You can't bluff a legacy. Charles hissed. Legacy? Ms. May lifted the keychain, its EW engraving catching the light. Elijah's legacy outlived your lies. Your choice, humility or oblivion. As lawyers scrambled, Brad's phone buzzed, a Twitter alert. The viral video of Ms. May's ejection blared, the comments a chorus of #FireBrad. Charles sagged, the fight leaching out of him. We'll draft the statement. Ms. May rose, her reflection towering in the window. And Brad. All eyes turned to him. Clean out your desk. The Coulter Motors logo crashed to the lobby floor in a cacophony of shattering glass, replaced by a gleaming new sign. Wilkins Automotive Group. Workers scrambled to sweep the debris. As Ms. May watched, Elijah's keychain tucked in her palm like a talisman. On the street, news vans swarmed, their headlines blaring. Grandma CEO's takeover goes viral. Inside Brad's emptied office, cardboard boxes overflowed with monogram cufflinks and ego. A janitor slapped a sticker on the door. Zoe Carter, sales director, as Zoe herself hovered, disbelieving. Me? But I just answered phones. Ms. May squeezed her shoulder. Elijah always said the best engines hum before they roar. At a dive bar miles away, Brad nursed a bourbon, his LinkedIn feed a graveyard of formerly at Coulter Motors. The bartender smirked, nodding to the TV where MSNBC dissected his downfall. A lesson in karma or corporate evolutions? That's bullshit. Brad slurred no on. A construction worker swiveled on his stool. Nah, man, that's justice. Back at headquarters, Ms. May faced her new board, a mosaic of young engineers, black entrepreneurs, and Elijah's gray-haired protégés. The Elijah Wilkins initiative launches today, she announced. $50 million to minority-owned auto startups. And this, she gestured to a hologram of a solar-powered SUV, its design stolen from Elijah's 1986 sketches, is our future. A tech reporter raised her hand. Why not bankrupt Coulter? Why rebuild? Ms. May's gaze drifted to the keychain. Fire purifies, but rebuilding? That's legacy. Zoe's first customer arrived at noon. A college student, nervously clutching a scholarship letter. I need something reliable? Zoe handed her the keys to a hybrid sedan. Test drive this. No pressure. As the girl drove off, Zoe exhaled, tears pricking her eyes. Elijah's name on the wall, her name on the door. That night, Miss May wandered the silent dealership, her loafers echoing. She paused at Elijah's prototype engine, now displayed like a monument. You warned me cars were never just metal, she whispered. Their freedom. Outside, a teen adjusted his phone to capture the new sign. The video caption would read, Old systems crash. New roads rise. The Coulter Motors lot, once a sterile showroom of chrome and condescension, now buzzed with warmth. Strings of Edison bulbs crisscrossed the ceiling above Wilkins Automotive Group's flagship dealership, casting honeyed light over rainbow murals of Elijah's sketches. Ms. May paused at the entrance, her reflection shimmering in the polished hood of the solar-powered SUV, Elijah's SUV, its curves finally freed from 1986 blueprint purgatory. Ms. Wilkins, a young salesman scurried over, his tie slightly askew. The team's ready when you are. She smiled. Team, not staff. Progress. In the driver's seat, Ms. May traced the dashboard's touchscreen, its interface glowing with Elijah's signature cobalt, a shade he'd called the color of tomorrow. The engine hummed to life, a whisper compared to the growl of Coulter's gas guzzlers. Flashback, 1987. Elijah slammed the hood of their battered station wagon. Grease smeared across his knuckles. Someday, Martha. Cars won't sound like dying dinosaurs. He kissed her forehead. Someday they'll sing. The SUV glided onto the highway, smooth as a pendulum. Ms. May rolled down the window, Atlanta's wind tugging her braids. In the rear view, the dealership shrank, its mural of Elijah's face visible even from miles away. He'd hate the spotlight, she muttered, but love the car, Lila replied from the passenger seat, grinning. Back at the dealership, Zoe Carter wiped her palms on her blazer, staring at the customer across her desk, a single father, nervous and sweating through his Walmart vest. I need something safe for my kids, he said, eyeing the price tags like landmines. Zoe slid forward a brochure for the hybrid sedan. Let's talk payments, Mr. Diaz. Not just dollars. When he choked up at the approval notice, Zoe handed him tissues, her own eyes stinging. Elijah's name on the wall, her name on the desk. Brad Coulter's Uber rating plummeted as he sped past the dealership, his jaw clenching at the Wilkins logo. A notification pinged. Coulter Motors Files Chapter 11. He hurled his phone into the passenger seat, where it landed beside a half-empty bottle of Jameson. At a red light, a billboard loomed. Ms. May and Zoe, arms slung over Elijah's SUV. Tagline, the road belongs to everyone. Bullshit, Brad spat, but his voice lacked conviction. That evening, Ms. May stood at Elijah's gravesite, the sunset staining the marble orange. She placed a miniature SUV model beside his headstone. Your song's a little off-key, baby, She joked, throat tight. But damn, it's loud. As she turned to leave, a group of teens on electric bikes whizzed by, their laughter trailing like exhaust. One pointed to her dealership pin. Yo, that's Wilkins' widow. Respect. Ms. May tucked the keychain back into her purse, its EW dulled but unbroken. The desert sun baked the tarmac outside Phoenix as Martha, Ms. May, Wilkins handed Zoe Carter the keys to the Wilkins Automotive Group. The crowd, employees, reporters, and the Navajo teen ambassadors she'd mentored erupted in applause. Zoe, now CEO, clutched the keys like a lifeline. What if I crash? She whispered. Ms. May adjusted Zoe's lanyard, its tag glinting legacy builder. Then you rebuild. Roads aren't meant to be perfect. Just traveled. A camera flashed, capturing the moment for tomorrow's headlines from classroom to boardroom. Teachers' final lesson changes in industry. In Brooklyn, Brad Coulter's Uber app pinged with a fare downtown to JFK Airport. He scowled at the name, Jamal Wilkins. No relation, surely. The passenger slid into his back seat, a lanky 22-year-old in a crisp suit, typing rapidly on his phone. Brad's eyes flicked to the rear view. That jawline. Those eyes. Wilkins Automotive? Brad croaked, staring at the kid's LinkedIn profile on his dashboard tablet. Internship, Jamal said, grinning. My grandma's launching a mentorship program. Changing the game, you know? Brad's knuckles whitened on the wheel. Grandma. Flashback 1 year prior. Ms. May's voice on the courthouse steps. Prejudice isn't an opinion. It's a violation of the human contract. Your grandma, Brad said, throat dry. She's something. Jamal shrugged. She says cars aren't about metal. They're about motion. Ms. May stood at Elijah's grave, the phoenix wind tugging her shawl. She placed a tiny model of the solar SUV beside the weathered one from last year. Zoe's got the wheel now, she murmured. But I kept your keychain. Just in case. A text buzzed her phone. A photo from Zoe. Mr. Diaz, the single father, stood beside his hybrid sedan, now sporting a Wilkins Ambassador decal. His kids grinned from the sunroof. You see that, Elijah? She thought. We're convoy now. Brad idled outside JFK, watching Jamal stride toward departures. The kid paused, turned, and tossed a business card through the window. Wilkins needs drivers for their test track program. Pays better than Uber. Brad stared at the card embossed with Zoe's name. Why? Jamal smirked. Grandma says even breaks deserve a second chance. At sunset, Ms. May settled into her porch rocker, the keychain warm in her palm. Headlights swept the driveway. Terrell's SUV, now dented from college road trips, packed with friends. Gran, we're test driving the new hydrogen truck tomorrow. Terrell yelled, his laughter blending with his friends. She waved, content to watch. The engine's hum, Elijah's hum, faded as they disappeared down the road. Somewhere in Detroit, a Wilkins apprentice scribbled a blueprint. In Dallas, a single mom signed a loan for her first electric van. In Brooklyn, Brad Coulter hovered over Zoe's contact, his finger trembling. And Martha Wilkins? She rocked, her husband's keychain clutched tight, savoring the quiet before the next storm.